So, hello and welcome to the New Gig podcast. I'm your host, Glen Hodgson. And today I'm delighted to be joined by the CEO of Cappy, Mr. Andreas Hallingström. How are you doing, Andreas?
Hi, Glenn. I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Very happy to have you here. And let's start a little bit for the viewers and listeners about Cappy. Basically, what are you doing and what are the services you're offering?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I'm the CEO and founder of Chappy. And what we do is that, we partner with businesses to enable their workers to be able to track, to see how much they've worked and earned, and be able to withdraw a portion of that earned income before payday, in real time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without incurring extra debt to these workers' personal finances. So that is it in a nutshell, and we call this flexible pay. And, flexible pay has numerous advantages for both workers and businesses. Workers tend to experience a higher level of freedom and control when they are themselves, when they have power over their own pay. And businesses at the same time get more engaged workers that are focusing on the work, when at work. But also they get a tool in their tool set to be able to work with workers throughout the employee lifecycle. Yeah. So from attracting and recruiting talent to motivating and retaining talent. And of course, in today's world where there's a war for talent, and this is what keeps many business owners awake at night. This is a new tool to their tool set that they can leverage, to gain advantages in the labor market. And I mean, also, if you think of it, it's pretty strange that today, when we live in an economy, where everything is instant and on demand, more or less, and everything is just one push of a button away in your mobile phone. That you have to wait in Sweden for your pay as an hourly worker until the 25th next month. Yeah. And also, as an analog, consider the following: that you walk into a 7-Eleven store and you ask to buy a cup of coffee, and you get your cup of coffee, and then you say that, great, I'll be back with those 50 krona in 40 days. They would close the shop, right? They wouldn't let you out because, and this is really important, that the business owner wants to get paid for the service product that they provide, but they won't pay the worker to provide that service until much later on. And we think that this is an outdated pay experience and pay construct that, that we're looking to change in favor, of course, both businesses and workers.
Absolutely. And I think this is really changing the game because, as you say, helping giggers and freelancers to get their money quicker, but also some general parts of the population as well. I mean, when you spell it out like that, it does seem very outdated and very much something that sticks out. Why is it the case you have to wait so long to basically get the money from something that you've done? Certainly seems something that's outdated now that the technology and the systems are there to allow this to happen almost instantaneously.
Definitely. I mean, that is, of course, one of the problems that has stopped the innovation in the pay experience. That technology hasn't really been there. And there's been a lot of manual work in the process of running payroll, and managing these pay advances, and it still is. So businesses, they lack the technology, they lack the routines and processes, and of course they lack the liquidity to do this during the month for the employees that wish to have a pay advance. So that's where we come in.
Absolutely. And I think this is a good point that you raised there as well, Andreas, the fact that this is employers who are actually benefiting from this as well, because it automates a system which can be so very time consuming and quite dull in terms of the labor intensive going through that, depending on the number of workers that you have, but just going through and making sure that the pay goes out. Then you have your sort of employer contributions, all the taxes, things that you need to do at the same time as well. To facilitate and simplify this process for them as well must be a real advantage.
Yeah, it is definitely. And I mean, a lot of businesses today that they say no to paying out salary or pay in advance, because there is a lot of manual work, and manual work, is equal to money spent on, administrative tasks that can be spent otherwise.
Yeah.
So that sort of, limits the pay experience for these workers when they actually need the money at most. And, where we are today with inflation, and everyone's talking about the upcoming recession and everything, people are more in need of the money they earn now rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an important topic.
Yeah, I know. Completely agree on this this approach. Completely agree that this is something that's absolutely necessary. And give us a little bit of an idea at the moment about the services that you're offering. What kind of jobs are people doing that are making the use of your services? Is it one specific sector, or is it more broad across a range of sectors and services?
Yeah, so I would say that or what we're seeing is that hourly workers is definitely one of the target groups for this, because they exhibit characteristics that other workers don't. For example, if you're working a number of hours for one employer, you're working a number of hours for another employer, your struggle during the month is getting enough hours to be able to pay your rent and fixed costs, etc., to make your living. So getting the money quicker for those individuals is often much more of a struggle than for other people. So I would say that flexible workers in that sense is our target group. But and a lot of course in this sector there's a lot of blue collar workers. But what we're also seeing is that a lot of the hourly workers and frontline workers are going to get this first, but every other white collar workers who are working in the office, etc., are going to ask, why don't we get this as well? Because why should this be just for one sector? So I think that in the coming years, everyone more or less that earns a pay will be able to access their money quicker than they are today. So across geographies, across industries, no matter where you work or what you do for a living, you're going to be able to access your pay sooner.
Excellent. Well, this is good news for individuals and also I think at the end of the day, employers, because as you rightly highlight there, Andreas, there is a war for talent out there. You want to be able to keep good people, interest them with new projects and new activities, in a way of being able to say, well, look, you can get your money straight away, several times a month instead of sort of waiting for it. This must be a huge incentive that a potential employer, individual giving out projects to be able to attract the right people must be able to use as a bit of a carrot in terms of attracting the best talent that's available on the open market.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of employers also see it from an employer branding perspective, that you're becoming more of a modern employer when you update the pay experience. And of course, that's part of also the attraction and recruitment phase of the employee lifecycle. So and it's, of course, it's hard to measure the financial impact of having a stronger employee brand or employer brand, but you can definitely see it, and it's becoming easier to attract talent. I mean, if you're choosing between working for one warehouse or the other, or one fast food restaurant or the other, you're gonna make burgers at the both of these employers. The restaurants, you have more or less the same terms, the same pay. Why would I choose to work for McDonald's versus Burger King? Right. Well, if Burger King were to provide flexible pay to their workers, it's going to be much more interesting for me to select Burger King. And that has also been seen internationally with other providers within the flexible pay space, that businesses are seeing these advantages throughout the employee lifecycle, which is of course very interesting, and something that we're picking up on here in Sweden now as well.
That's brilliant, and as you say, it's something which is really a differentiator in the marketplace, but also something that I think can go quite viral. We look at the sort of how things are shared on TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram today. This kind of thing that someone putting out, look, I've got my salary straight away, or a part of it. How these things just spread. among the demographic that we're looking at as well, it's a huge advantage, and this kind of word of mouth, which we see as the most strong and the most influential way of being able to sort of share these things. This just seems to be sort of a way that this will just take off. And as you say, more people will demand this as standard over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a hygiene factor, more or less, for businesses to offer this to their employees. And, you know, also what we're seeing is that flexibility, you know, in the workplace has also come a long way. You know, just look, you know, for the last few years here with the pandemic and everything. Before the pandemic, you know, the flexibility in the workplace was a lot about when you worked. So instead of working, you know, 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, you were able to work maybe, you know, on your own terms, as long as you did the work and you attended the meetings that you need to attend, right?
Yes.
And of course, a lot of office workers had this privilege. And it was also a perk, of course, for startups to offer their employees to be able to work when they wanted, instead of, you know, being in the office 8 to 5 or 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And the second wave of flexibility that we've seen now with the pandemic is, of course, the flexibility in geography. You can work from home, you can work from the office, or in a hybrid setting. And of course, something that existed before the pandemic, but was, you know, accelerated by the pandemic. And post-pandemic, you know, I took part in a webinar where they said that before the pandemic, on average, people wanted to work 10% from home. And after, I mean, that's like 4 hours per week. And after the pandemic, that number was up to 60%, so 3 days a week.
Yes.
So there's a massive shift, you know, in that type of flexibility, and what that type of flexibility can, you know, provide workers with. And I think that has changed forever. It's not going to look to people being in the office 100%. And now, you know, we're seeing the third wave of flexibility in the workplace being, you know, getting paid on your terms for the, you know, for the work that you've done, wherever you did it, whenever you did it. And also, I think that, and also, you know, one of our, you know, thesis that we're working around is that flexibility is not just a way of, you know, accessing things or, you know, experiencing things any longer. It's part of an integral part of life, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be more and more integral to everyone's life going forward, whether that's, you know, pay or, you know, when you work, where you work, or whatever. And I mean, technology has definitely changed that forever. I mean, looking at how people made it through the pandemic with, you know, Teams meetings and Zoom as this one, or whatever. It could be, you know, I could be in Spain and still working, you know, having my meetings, you know, attending everything at the office, and etc.
Right.
So
I think you highlight something very important, the way that digitalization is actually changing the way of work. And as you rightly say, and I agree with you on this, that it's not going back to the way it was before the pandemic. I mean, certain things can be reset, but I think this is, people have got the taste for this flexibility and this kind of remote working reality because the technology is there. And I think that this is sort of changing their dynamics. And we still see people that they want to meet up physically. I mean, I think one of the big things from this, of the last 2 years, is that people want to have physical meetings. They want to actually be there, but it doesn't mean they need to be 9 to 5 days a week in an office altogether. And it can be more sort of spread out. And I think also this mentality that a job is a place, I think that has changed forever as well. It's more sort of the tasks, the projects, and the impact and value that you can deliver, as opposed to turning up to a place, a big seed to be present. I think that this sort of mentality as well is something that's that's very strongly through the pandemic, and also probably the world of work is actually more strong and better for it as we focus more on efficiencies and allowing technology to be involved in that, as opposed to just people turning up to a specific place and either working or seeming to work for a certain number of hours.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I completely agree on a lot of the things you say here. And you know, the workplace has changed, and it's changing rapidly. And I think that's, that's how society works today. I mean, if you look historically, major shifts in society, etc., happened in a serial fashion.
Yeah.
But today, a lot of massive shifts in society, in technological advances are happening in parallel instead. I mean, just look at what's happening in the digital sphere with Web3, metaverse,
Yeah.
NFT, cryptocurrency. A lot of these things are happening in parallel. It's like, even for me, coming from a technical background, it's becoming hard to keep up with all the with everything that's happening, more or less. And
Yeah.
it's also providing new opportunities for work, and everything with VR, AR, and the metaverse, etc. It's gonna change again how we work in the future, I think.
Mm. Well, it's interesting that you say the speed of change is so quick that even an expert yourself is struggling to keep up. I mean, think of the average person in the street. I mean, the exponential change and the rapid developments that are ongoing at the moment. I completely agree with you, Andreas. It's very difficult to sort of keep up with this, but I think that the fact that it is changing and also creating new roles, new services, and even new jobs and new sectors that we haven't even thought about sort of even 5 months, let alone 5 years ago. There are new opportunities being created all the time, and I think that's an important part that people, particularly sort of the decision makers and opinion formers, sometimes forget. They kind of focus on the old world, old economy, and say, oh, well, these jobs are disappearing, it's terrible. But the fact is that for all those jobs that are disappearing, it seems to be sort of double the amount are actually being created through new technologies and new ways of working.
Yeah, absolutely. And I read that the World Economic Forum said that 85 million jobs will disappear in the coming 10 years, but I think it was like 93 million jobs will be created instead.
Right. Yeah.
And also I read that 90% of the kids born today will have a job when they grow up that is not yet invented.
Yeah.
So that's that's a true testament to
Yes.
to how fast the society and the labor market is changing, and the shifts that are happening right now. So I mean, we live in a time when we should be glad to live in this time, because it's so many things happening now that we're going to be able to tell our grandchildren then later on.
Yes.
That they will be able to understand, coming from black and white television to the where we live in today.
Absolutely.
Also, in regards to that, it's hard for us as human beings to keep up, but it's maybe even harder for society and regulation and legislation to keep up with what's happening.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing this with policy making, legislation, regulation around everything from us being a regulated entity by the Swedish FSA, the Finansinspektionen. How new regulatory frameworks, it takes a lot of time before they're implemented. It takes a lot of time for them to change. They're still operating in the old world where fintechs more or less didn't exist. Maybe a bit harsh, but it kind of feels like that when you work with them. But also governments with the legislation around platform workers' rights, DAC 7, a lot of things that you're pushing change around, and also what will bring a lot of structure, I think, to the gig economy, and make it more of a not regulated, but of course regulated, but make it better for workers. Workers' terms, so they can live by the terms that ordinary workers in other industries work by today.
Yeah, and I think it's an important change that we're sort of developing and going forward, because we don't want a sort of two-tier society where the people on a kind of a traditional employment contract are at an advantage and have better situation better terms and conditions than someone who chooses to be a freelancer. It should be exactly the same. It's just the flexibility and the opportunity should be open. You certainly shouldn't be seen as or treated as a second-class citizen just because of the fact you choose a different way of working. And I think that's something that we need to develop. And also, you're absolutely right. As this sector matures, and as the more sort of freelancing and also the systems and processes and services around it develop as well, I think to show that it's more mature and it's a credible option for more and more individuals. And I think this is the steps that we're taking at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think also, the gig economy is, I think a lot of people see it as something new, a new phenomenon, but it's, in reality, it's like the oldest job in the world, right?
Yeah, yes, it is.
So it's just that I think the notion of the gig economy has been, it's been accelerated by the digital transformation. It has happened like the 10 to 20 last years or so, but it's still, everyone working in the gig economy, whether that be, their primary source of income or, secondary source of income, they have issues that haven't really been solved today because they are also, they exhibit characteristics, once again, that other workers don't, because if you're a freelancer working for a company, you act as a business towards your clients, but, on the back of that, you're still a private individual, maybe self-employed via a gig platform. So you're a hybrid of a business and a person, a private individual, and that's that causes issues. So, for example, going through your bank, trying to get a mortgage, for example, they're going to ask about who's your employer, what's your monthly salary, and you're going to say that last month I had 6 employers and my salary was X. The month before that was 2X, and I had 4 employers. The banks can't cope with that because, or I would say most banks can't cope with that because it's not the standard model.
Definitely.
And that's also pretty frightening because 25% of the people in the 25% of the global workforce is going to be engaged in gig economy by 2025. It's estimated, and given that and that banks around the world aren't able to provide mortgages for those 25% or less. How's that going to affect the housing market?
I mean, no, I think the new solutions need to be thought out in terms of financial services, all the way from sort of giving loans, providing insurance, all these kind of things as well need to adapt and actually be advanced. Because where we are at the moment just seems to be that, as a larger percentage of the population are actually to take on these new forms of work, you can't suddenly be saying, well, our services aren't available for particularly here in Sweden, the big 4 banks. If they say that sort of 20-25% of the population are instantly precluded from actually taking part, then either you need to adapt or else there's an opportunity for a new player to be able to take a share of the market because it's very outdated.
I mean, in that sense, a lot of the people working in the gig economy are somewhat financially excluded from the traditional banking and finance systems. And of course, that opens up opportunities for fintechs to cater to and serve this population. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities in the market today for fintechs, and I think that like a company like Cappy, our company, that are leveraging fintech to do good in the market, to help people out. I think that's very important also for the gig economy to actually work and not have predatory fintech companies out there providing loans with high interest rates, etc. That just impacts or worsens the personal finances of these individuals. So that's one of our mantras going forward, that we need to provide fair services to these individuals.
Absolutely.
Not on the terms that other workers get.
No, I think it's fantastic, Andreas. And I think that Cappy really is changing the game, making more opportunities and allowing sort of workers to be able to access their money. And it is their money at the end of the day. They've worked for this, but having the opportunity to be able to access it in a more flexible way, I think should become the standard sooner rather than later. But it's fantastic you're changing the rules of the game and actually sort of bringing this forward through your sort of technology and solutions for individuals, but also companies as well. So really looking forward to watching the progress and watching the developments in this sector too.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the coming 3 to 5 years is definitely going to be a defining period for flexible pay in the workplace.
Excellent. Well, Andreas, keep us informed of how things go, and look forward to having you on again soon to give us those updates on what's happening in the fintech sector and how it's affecting the flexible open talent marketplace.
Thank you. It was great being here, Glenn. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.